I'm so lucky to have randomly never even known about it, and then went and did my grad school there and coached there as well. Like, I was extremely lucky for that to be a part of my life just because of how great of a school it is. And I think that's kind of what I miss about it most is, like, recruiting wise for me, I think out of all the schools that I've coached at, like, that's a school that I would have loved to gone to. So I think that's why it was so easy to, like, want to sell that to a recruit. It's like, and you can recruit guys that are like you as well. It's like, why would you not want to go here? Like, the school is awesome. So I think that's what I miss about it more than anything, just the kind of school it is, the environment it creates, and the opportunities that are there.
Part 2 of our roundtable discussion with all of Mike Collins' former GA and assistant coaches looks into 2 big questions. One being advice that these guys would give to young coaches like Brandon and I. And then we go into things they miss the most about Bloomsburg. So thanks for listening to this 2-part episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Brandon talked a little bit about it before we went to Dustin about stories, right? And I think the one thing that we've all talked about is that there's always really great stories. I know when I first got in the gig, I talked a lot to Hardy. I talked a lot to Brownie because I knew Brownie beforehand. And so let's go back. And do you have any really good stories that stick out from your time for the guys who played? Maybe it's playing, but for the rest of us when you were coaching?
Eversol, go. Have to.
All right, so, I got to tell the Carpenter Cup story, right? I think Johnson, Epstein, Brownie probably knows this. So going to the Carpenter Cup, it's like my first recruiting gig, right? So me and Collins, we get an SGA, those white SGA vans. We drive down there to his brother's house. His brother cooks us dinner. We're sitting outside having a good time. We go inside getting ready for bed. And MC takes me to the kitchen, puts peanut butter in front of me, puts grape jelly in front of me. And he says, "Can you make us some sandwiches for tomorrow? We're going to be there all day." So I make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and put them in the fridge. And then tomorrow, or the next day, when we got to the field, after a couple games, we go back to the van, and we get the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches out, and MC takes one and takes a big bite out of it, and jelly just falls everywhere, right? And he looks at me and goes, "Bud, there's too much jelly in here." And all of the sandwiches were like that. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you're making PB&Js for you and MC, go light on the jelly. So that's probably my favorite all-time stories, is because I remember the look he gave me, and he was just utter disappointment, which is, a look that you don't want to see from MC, but it was all in the PB&J. So sorry, MC.
Well, that morning you're like, "Man, you didn't really give me much peanut butter and jelly." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I only made like 2 or 3 sandwiches." So, probably, one jar was good for like 2 sandwiches with the Everbro. So
this isn't a great one, but we were talking about, I was on a Zoom call Friday night, and we were probably with like 15 pitching guys, and then my Coach Griff was on there catching guy, and they were talking about pitch calling, and guys were going back and forth. Just, do you let the pitchers call it? Do you call it? If you do call it, do you let them shake off? Blah, blah, blah. And when I first started coaching at Bloom, like, my philosophy was, I'm going to call the pitches, like, but I'm going to feel like if the pitcher or the catcher kind of want to do their own thing, they can do their own thing. Like, and if the pitcher wants to shake me off, like, he can shake me off whenever he wants. So we're playing at East Stroudsburg, and they had a really good team that year. This is my second year there, and we're beating them at third place. And Ian Allen comes up to the plate. I think there was guys on first and second. We were up a run, so there was nowhere to put them, and there was 1 or 2 outs. I know there wasn't 0, but I don't think there was 2 yet. And Warren was cruising that day, and at that point we didn't really have like a back end closer that was like locked down. So he was going to win or lose the game the way he pitched. He pitched really well. That was one of the best outings I've ever seen him. And I remember I go out to the mound, and Schiffer's on the mound. And we beat Allen all day with fastballs in, change-ups away. Mike just randomly whipped a change-up out of nowhere that day, and Schiffer was like, "Where did this thing come from?" I'm like, "I don't know, just roll with it." So we go out to the mound, and I'm like, "Hey," "what do you want to throw on first pitch?" And he's like, "I want to throw him a curveball first pitch." And I was like, "All right." Like, he was convicted, and I was like, we've been beating him with fastballs in and changeups all day. Like, want to go with the curveball? He's like, yup, curveball, 100%. He's going to take it, and then we'll go back to fastball in. Like, okay. Let the curveball go. Ian Allen hit it over the left field wall. Right as soon as it came off his bat, I already snapped my clipboard over my knee and threw it out the back of the dugout. Walk-off homer. We lost to East Stroudsburg. But that was one of the more recent ones that I was thinking about on Friday, just on that Zoom call. And Mike still gets pissed about that pitch to this day, and he still texts me about it all the time.
Well, I can't speak to the pitching part like everybody else. I think everybody else here was a pitching coach. So, I was a catcher when I played, and so my role as a coach was basically do everything that MC does. I was a catcher, he was a catcher, so I had to do the catching. So I had to learn, I had to learn how to do the outfield stuff. I had to learn other ways to basically become valuable, because MC had done everything, on the offensive side for years. All the infield defense, all the catching defense, outfield defense, all the hitting. So I was able to learn a lot through that, just out of need, basically just wanting to help and just learning different things. But I think the best story, the story I always remember as a player, my senior year, we were really young. We had like 3 seniors. We had a bunch of really good freshmen. We had some pitching injuries that year. And we started off the year 4-21, I believe. We're 4-21. We had this massive 17-game losing streak. It was a really tough year for me personally, obviously, because I had gotten hurt early in the year, and it was my senior year, and we were struggling. And the second half of that year, we were unbelievable. We went 17-4, and we finished 21-27. I remember at the end of that run, MC had us in left field after a home game that we had just won, and he was like overcome by emotion of how we just continued to play hard and work hard. And I think that was a testament to MC. Like, he didn't care that we were 21-27 and not going to the playoffs that year. It was more that we just continued to play hard, and we cared about the season enough to keep trying. Like, we didn't just throw the season away and go 6-42. We just continued to play hard. And I always just remember that the emotion, that he had that day, and just how grateful he was, to his team for playing hard. So that's the story I wanted to share.
I mean, I got a good one. Actually, I got a shorter one that I'll start with from way back, because I know you guys have coached with Coach Collins more recently, and he's tapered off his emotions in recent years. And back when, let's say 2006, my first year playing, we were down on spring break on an overloaded really hard strength of schedule, and we were I think it was towards the end of the week. It wasn't the end, but we were playing at Georgia College and State, and they were ranked like number 2 in the country that year. And so we finished we played like a Wednesday, Thursday, or back-to-back days, and we just got basically our balls beat in for 2 days, and everyone was just getting on the bus ready to start traveling north to like playing North Carolina. And Coach Collins was not happy at this point, and we all know he's a man of few emotions in the anger area, but something had spiked his nerves that day, too many. And the other team, well funded, bought us some pizzas to go on the bus. And I'll never forget Coach Collins standing up being like, "Here you go, guys," screaming towards the back of it, "Here, take your pizzas." They just bought us a whole bunch of pizzas. Hopefully we come back next year and they can want to kick our ass again. I remember being like in the back being like, "Get them." We just eat a bunch of pizza for a free ass kicking.
Mike, do you remember that? Do you remember that series?
Yeah, that was year number 1. We were a little overmatched on that spring break trip. We played Lander, and we played. I think we played Lincoln Memorial. Yeah, it was a tough stretch. Played Georgia College. They were number 1 or 2 in the country. Yeah, so we didn't have the personnel for that week at that time frame. Especially on the mound. So, yeah, Dustin was here in the first my first 3 years. first 3 years. So that was year number 1.
So he's got some good early stories.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Because I don't know, Dustin, but at least on my end, I mean, like I've only seen him angry a couple of times, but he's a pretty chill individual. Rob, or go ahead, Dustin. You want to say something?
I was just gonna say, when we coached together, I feel like I was the angry guy in the dugout anyway. So very mild mannered.
All right, I'll kick it to Rob. Rob, what's your best story about your time at Bloomsburg?
So I got 2. One I wasn't even directly involved in. As all of us know, being grad assistants, oftentimes our fall class schedule for grad school impacts our practice time. So you might have to show up a little bit late or a little bit early. And I remember coming up to practice after class, and Schiffer catches me right before I get into the dugout. He's like, "Hey, MC's mad today." I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "I think he just kicked a water bottle behind first base. Holmes is screwing around over there." And that was I think that was my first year. So that was the first incident of Coach Collins being angry of any sort. And I think that's one, it's funny because, it comes randomly. And I think that's a really good thing. And two, it shows, he still has the fire in him to actually, he wants everybody to compete, wants them to get better, wants them to prove themselves at practice. And three, it kind of, I know you were angry in the moment, MC, but at the time, it kind of lightened the load on the guys. I think they were right in the middle of midterms, and it kind of, for everybody but Holmesy, it made them laugh a little bit. So, I mean, that's a good thing. And then the second thing is, Dustin just said it, and I'm sure most of us feel it, 99.99% of the time, we as grad assistants are the angry ones in the dugout, and Coach Collins is the level-headed, cool guy that, nothing seems to impact him whatsoever. And like Brownie said, I've broken a couple of clipboards over my knees. I've had a parent come up to me and say, "Hey, I got a box of clipboards. Do you want me to just bring the box with me to the next game?"
I was going to say that, for you or for anyone that wants to listen, I don't think it's necessary to be angry when you coach with Coach Collins, because there's no shot that Josh Epstein was an angry coach. Okay, he might be the nicest person out there. So nobody has to be angry to make Coach Collins work. That's I never broke a clipboard. So, I think just be yourself.
Oh man, I think I got a mean streak maybe. I have a similar story, Matt, what you were talking about. In the year that I was hired in the wintertime, still coaching at Roundtable, but knew that I was going to come out to Bloom the next fall. My girlfriend at the time, now wife, we decided there was a day a Saturday where we were supposed to play the College of New Jersey. They didn't put the tarp on the field. So we got washed, and it happened to be a nice day. So I'm like, yeah, let's take a ride. And so we went out, and I think I texted you, Coach. I think I texted you ahead of time. Maybe not. But we got there towards the end of the first game, and Tyler Hill was pitching, closing the first game out. And I was pretty pumped about that because Tyler was really, really good. And in between games, Coach came over to us and said hello, and then introduce you to Amira, and nice to meet you. We got Craigla, man. What do you think? I don't know. I think he's going to shut us down. He's really, really good, and it's going to be a tough game. And just boom, immediate, hello, nice to meet you. Back to baseball. And then I think it was first year. It had to be the first year because we were talking about Castleberry. One of the first road trips of the year. We're in the hotel room and sharing a room. And I don't wake up very late nowadays. 5:30 is normal. Back then, would sleep maybe till 7:30, and man, I don't know if it's changed, but about 5:30 in the morning, the light goes on, and I'm kind of groggy waking up, and immediately we're talking about the lineup and if Castleberry should be in the 3-hole or the 4-hole. Just always on, always thinking about it, and I think that's normal for everybody, but that was interesting, and at the time not so awesome, but definitely awesome to be locked in all the time, right? Because the decisions mean a lot, and as a young coach, you think the decisions mean a lot for sure, but to be thinking about them all the time as a young 20-some-odd-year-old isn't always apparent. So that was definitely another learning and pretty funny story to go with it.
Yeah, just going back to that game, that 18-inning game. I know Coach Hardy and Coach Collins were there, and I was in the dugout. Just honestly, that was the longest baseball game I've ever been a part of, and just all the outcomes that could have happened with that game, and seeing how, both Coach Hardy and Coach Collins handled the game and handled that upset was just is really something I took away from it. And like you guys said, just the evolution of the program, from I guess when Coach Johnson was first, just from where he's come from and where the program has gone now is really cool to me. And like I said, I've taken a lot from it. But just talking with you guys, I was hoping to get some more advice. What is some advice that you guys have for maybe a young coach, maybe someone that wants to get into a graduate assistant position, that you would give to them now?
Don't say no. I feel like no is gonna stop you from achieving anything. Realize that you can rearrange priorities, for sure, and definitely get out on the road and recruit as much as humanly possible as you could. The connections that you make on the road recruiting are limitless, just like the knowledge that you gain at Bloomsburg. So, I mean, just don't say no that early in your career. You'll be given the chance to say no later, as I'm sure some of you guys have learned through your experience. But at, even my position right now, don't say no. You have too much to gain by saying yes all the time at this moment.
I completely agree. I mean, Coach Hardy, you were the first coach that I worked with. I remember meeting you the first day, walking onto the field. Like, I honestly didn't know what to do. I walked onto the field, and the first person I met was Bobko. And him in his arm sling was just kind of – I was like, am I even prepared for this? People are going to look at me like I'm just coming here to be an assistant. And you really took me under your wing, so I really appreciate that.
For somebody that's looking to get into a grad assistantship somewhere other than Bloomsburg, the Bloomsburg one is unique. And I guess my only other experience with a program that has a grad assistant was Lincoln Memorial, and that's very much a low man on the totem pole, doing all of the laundry, doing all of the field work that nobody else wants to do, doing all of that. Which reminds me of another story that I could talk about in a minute. But yeah, be prepared to do anything, right? And like Rob said, don't say no, ever. And recruiting for sure. I think Coach Collins certainly got me in the door with Coach Six Eye at LMU. But I think one of the things that got me higher up on the list there was when he called, and I was at Select Fest, and I technically didn't have a job at that point. I didn't have a team to recruit for, quote unquote, but I think he was happy with the fact that I was still on the road, keeping up with what's going on and everything. So recruiting and being ready to tackle anything with a lot of excitement is surely important. And yeah, I think those two things.
Awesome. Coach Collins, I see you have your hand raised in the chat. Is there something you want to add to this?
I want to tell you guys, when I fill that GA spot, I know that there's I have a great degree of responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility goes along with finding the right guy, because I know I'm going to rely heavily on that guy. as part of the staff. And there's always a little degree of like, oh man, this is going to be a critical person that's going to impact the student athletes. And I want to thank you guys for the work that you've done. And you guys really took the opportunity, ran with it. And I've learned every one of you guys, I've been able to take away different things from your experiences. And there's a lot of commonalities between each of you in terms of how you ran the pitching staff, but all of you guys brought something a little bit different. Nick here is the only offensive guy in the group, but in terms of the pitching, I think each one of you guys were able to put your own stamp on it. And if anything, I think it just sort of enriched the experience of the guys. So, it wasn't drastically different for them going from one guy to the next, but I think they learned a lot from each and every one of you guys. And, we've had a lot of success in the last couple of years, and I think each and every one of you guys have had a hand in that in terms of being a building block of the success of the program and trying to propel us forward with the recruiting that you did and the efforts that you made and the quality of the guys that we were able to bring in together. So, I owe a huge debt of gratitude to you guys for all those W's. And, I think we're doing well and we have a good program. We're winning a lot of games, and we wouldn't be where we're at without each and every one of you guys, from Dustin to, Vinny James isn't with us today, but Vinny was one of our former GAs, and Corey Bachman, who was unable to be with us today. Both Vinny and Corey had great careers in higher ed administration. Vinny at Temple and Corey at BMI. So I'm really proud of the success that all of you guys have continued to have in your careers too.
I think that's an interesting point to add on. It's not just like, you come, you do the grad assistantship, and then next thing you know, like you continue in baseball. I think, we see, Vinny is a great example of that. Bachman too. Like it's, again, I think Brownie used it first, but it's limitless. Like the opportunity gives you, your foot in the door. So we'll bring it back to advice, right? Good advice for young coaches.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I think like when I first started coaching, it was like, okay, if MC gave me something to do or I had something to do, I would just, okay, I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow or whatever. My advice would be, if you have something to do or you have something you want to work on, just do it right away. Just do it now. So I think that would be my advice if you want to make a good impression on MC, like I didn't do, or you're a future boss. Just whatever you want to do or whatever you have to do, just do it right away. Because the more you push it off, it shows that you lack follow through, I think. And I think head coaches especially want to see that you're going to be able to follow through with something, whether it's something that he gave you or something you're doing on your own. So that would be my advice.
We actually just talked about this the other day. We hired 2 new coaches that came down here this week, and we had a meeting, just kind of introducing them to the staff and everything. And then our coach asked us, like, any advice for these guys coming in here. And the biggest thing I think is, like, when you first start coaching is just, who you were as a player, who you played for. And I think a lot of times when guys get done, they kind of want to be who they played for as a coach, but maybe that's not you and maybe that's not who you are as a coach. So I think the biggest thing is to just kind of be yourself and figure out who you are as a coach. And I think if you're trying to be someone else all the time, you're not going to figure out who you are. I think the more that you try to be yourself and kind of infiltrate that into who you are as a coach, that's kind of the best way to do it rather than the opposite. So just be yourself, work hard. And the recruiting thing is huge. You guys touched on being out on the road all the time. I think that was something I didn't do enough at Bloomsburg, and I should have done more. The location's obviously a little bit different. But once I was in Philadelphia and everything is, right at your fingertips, just being out on the road all the time, I think was huge. And that really helped me learn a bunch of people that I still talk to today. And just shows that you're a hard worker and you're out there all the time. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I regret from being in Bloom. I wish I was out there more and went out there more on my own.
I'm going to chime in with something that I think I've learned through many years of doing this, especially when you guys are going to ascend as a young coach to be a head coach. As coaches, we talk about like having a great culture in your locker room, in your dugout, where, you have guys that are putting the team first, guys that aren't I guys or me guys, are always thinking about willing to make a sacrifice or to serve their teammate. And as coaches, we talk about that, we lecture about it, we read about it, we go to clinics, we hear people talk about it. And it's just like, it's important. And I think there's a lot of coaches that do a great job of that. I think sometimes though, after you do this for a while and you're in that leadership spot where you're running the show, you begin to realize that, man, maybe I'm not that team guy that I expect them to be. Because as a coach, we fall into this rut. And the best example I could give you is many years ago, I was at a clinic down in New Jersey. Somebody pulled a fire alarm, and this is in mid-January, and everyone's filing out of the hotel at 2 a.m. and it's like 20 degrees out. And I snuck into like a closet because I didn't want to go out in the middle of January at 3 a.m. with a handful of other guys. We're in this little, it was like a pantry off a kitchen, and there was a major Division I coach in there just sitting on a milk crate. And I was, at the time I was like 24, 25 years old. I was a little bit awestruck by this guy, big timer. He was one of the featured speakers, and I'm this young part-time coach. So I try to engage him in conversation very, very like nervously. And as I did, all he did was complain. He would complain about his facility, complain about his budget, complain about the other competitive coaches in his league, how much they had and how little he had. And then I thought, man, this guy, he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's at the top of the profession. But here he is, looking over his shoulder at the competition, and he's got nothing but negative things to say in terms of his situation. And from that moment on, I'm thinking, no matter where you're at, you could be at a major Division I situation. There's always going to be somebody that has a bigger budget, that has a better facility, that has more staffing, what have you, better financially. There's always somebody that has more. So you really got to resist the temptation to complain about those types of things and really focus on the positive things that you do have. And in terms of your culture, you got to think about your team, your coaching staff as a unit, all right, in terms of culturally, what are you doing for your institution? Because we look at an individual player and say, what is that individual guy doing for the team? Is he an I guy? Is he interested in himself, or he's interested in helping the team be successful? Because no player is obviously bigger than the team, but no team is bigger than the department. So as coaches, we can't be the ones saying to our athletic administrators, what about me? What do I get? I need more of this. I need more of that. Because the administrator is looking at you as the head coach saying, just like you would looking at a player comes into your office and says, I need more scholarship money. And then you're going to say, why? Why do you need more scholarship money? Why should I give you more scholarship money? And that's how athletic administrators might view a coach or a baseball program. So, we kind of have to do a better job of taking our own advice. And I've learned that the hard way and evolved over the hard way in realizing over many years that our baseball team is there as a resource for our department. And the goals of the department are bigger than the goals of the team, and the goals of the division are bigger than the department, and the goals of the institution are most important. And in order to advance my team, I need to support the goals of the division and the department. And I don't do that by just asking for what can I get, just like we wouldn't want our players banging on our doors asking what can they get. We do it by advancing the mission of the institution and showing the value of baseball at these schools. And by showing the value of our student athletes and showing our institutions, our departments, our divisions, what our student athletes are capable of on the field and off the field in the community, we show the real value of the college baseball program and the impact it can make on a campus community and on a local community. And it's through that you can really advance your program. That's how you advance the program, by taking your athletic program, your baseball program, and weaving it into the fabric of your department, your division, and your university. And over the years, I've kind of figured that out. And as I've kind of pushed that philosophy, guess what happened? Our team started winning. We started becoming better. The value of our team started to improve, and I think that's the thing that I probably learned the most over the many years where I've been at Bloomsburg, of trying to take baseball and elevate it, not by asking for things, not by pushing for things, but by really doing the work and focusing internally on how we can make an impact on our campus and how we can advance the mission of our institution.
Yeah, and that's great stuff. Now, I know, Dustin, you want to come in and give us a little bit of your personal advice for, a young coach?
Yeah, sure. So, and I think a lot of this has kind of been said, but I agree. Like I was going to say, just like Brownie said, like be true to yourself. And I think that's kind of where like the working really hard and being prepared and growing your, what you'd like to do and stuff, but being true to like who you are, like your personality, and let that come through. I think that's important in any role that you have. Also, I think being loyal is really important, because just like with Coach saying about like people complaining about things, like somebody gave you the job you're in, and if you're getting into coaching, it's because you love baseball and you want an opportunity, you want a rare chance to do this for a long time, and you're probably going to be in, quite frankly, a shitty situation, so, or not ideal, right? So be loyal to the person that hired you, to the school that hired you, and do your best to, accomplish your goals that way. And I think maybe most importantly, like be open-minded and listen more than you talk. Like, I think that's a really good point for a young coach. Like, just have open ears and, close your lips and learn something.
Yeah, no, I agree. And jumping off of that point, I know I told my story about, Epstein kind of teaching me a little bit about, recruiting and giving me that tidbit of advice. So the question that I really want to ask you guys is, the cool thing about this GA spot is that we're all kind of connected, right? We're all at Bloomsburg. We all got the opportunity to coach with, Coach Collins. So I know, like, especially when it came to, the three guys that I already knew, Brownie, Rob, and Epstein, like whenever I see them, it's kind of like, oh, how are things going? So what was the biggest thing for you guys that you learned from the previous GA, previous assistant coaches, that really, was a profound takeaway from that, that back and forth?
I think the biggest thing I learned from Josh was just being comfortable with the place, the job, and everything like that, just from talking to him, not knowing anything about Bloomsburg or anything. He did a really good job making me feel comfortable going there. And then I think a lot of times when young coaches first start, the only thing they think about is, all right, how can we win? How can we win? How can we win? And I think I realized that Josh was a lot about relationships and about the people that he was coaching. And he used to just always tell me, like, man, I'm sad to leave these guys. Like, these are good guys. These are good guys. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, like all college baseball players are good guys. But then I truly realized, like, the kids we had there were just awesome kids. And I think that was the biggest thing I realized, was that the relationships that I could take from being there, and not just focusing on the winning or worrying about that all the time, just the guys that we had to coach there, and really, really taking advantage of that, and having good meaning in that. There's still guys from those teams that I talk to all the time. I talked to Edgett today. I talked to Warren last week. I talked to Edgett almost every day or every other day. So there's the relationship thing, and just the comfortability with the school that I took from him was definitely big, and definitely helped me out in my transition a lot.
I'll go. I think a phrase that gets thrown around a lot these days is "leave it better than you found it." And Corey came before me, or came before I did, and we talked frequently during that transition time, and I came out to Bloom a couple times looking for a place to live, and he was helping me kind of give me the lay of the land a little bit. And, but it was unique because I was lucky I had Nick there, and Nick obviously was there for a while and could help me out with that. And we Nick, you probably remember, we sat down La Fontana, I want to say. We had lunch, yeah. And Corey just gave me the rundown of every guy, and that really helped. Kyle Hunter was the guy that comes to mind, and just give me, you got to get with Kyle. You have to do this with Kyle. You have to get into a relationship with him. You have to build this. And hopefully, Nick, you have it on speaker and Kyle's in the background so he can hear this. But just, it was very, very apparent that Corey wanted to make sure that all the ducks were in the row. and that he was doing everything possible to leave it better. And that was awesome for me because the staff that I come from at Rampo, it was the head coach had been there for a number of years, and none of the other assistants had left. They were all local guys with full-time jobs, and they were doing that part-time. And I was kind of like the outsider leaving. So without anybody having left that staff as kind of like a blueprint, didn't really it was important because you read about it all the time. Nobody had left to make, and nobody was concentrated on leaving it better because nobody left. But coming out core was definitely helpful with that. And I would imagine, that certainly came from you, Dustin, and so that was certainly appreciated.
I think the biggest thing I learned from Brownie was Brownie's master's program. I think we can all agree was unbelievably ridiculously hard, mind-numbing, and just absurd. So he spent a lot of time trying to balance the difference, or his workload from classes and his workload from being a baseball coach. And one of the biggest takeaways I took from him coming into the position was, remember that you're a person, remember that you have a life, and remember that it's okay to have fun sometimes, because like we've all said, or at some point felt, there is going to be a point where you're on the brink of pretty much losing it, and you got to be able to have some fun to relieve some stress during the GA position years. And I think that's definitely the biggest takeaway that I took from Brownie moving into that position.
No, the only thing I have is I have a question. Brownie, how long have you lived in Tennessee now?
I moved in here last June, and I lived in Jefferson City where the school is for a month, and it didn't take me long to realize that I didn't want to live there, so I moved to Knoxville about a month later.
Okay, so 11 months?
Yeah, just about a year.
Gotcha. Okay. Do they sell the Southern accent like in a store, or do
they don't, thankfully. I don't think I have one yet. I do say y'all a little bit sometimes, but that's about it.
All right, so I think for the final question that I have, and I know it's something that Mike and I will go back and forth with all the time. It's kind of like a moment of what do you miss most about being at Bloomsburg?
Let's see. Tornado wings at good old days. The crab dip burger at Marley's. Watching MC eat the hottest soup ever at Monty's. No, on a serious note though, probably what I do miss, I don't know if I miss it. I have like kind of a soft spot for it, I guess. We probably all do. Is just like not having scholarship money to fall back on when recruiting, and having to basically go up against other teams in the league and mid-major Division I's with you're at a huge disadvantage with scholarship money. So you really have to really get to know them. You have to really find out what's important to them, and you really have to not sell to them, but you have to recruit them. You have to, I think, without having scholarship money to fall back on, I think having limited resources has probably helped. It's helped me probably the most in recruiting. I'm sure many of you guys would agree. But I do. It was more of like a pure recruiting. It's not like I'm going to outbid this other team or anything. That's probably one of the things I miss the most.
I'll just kind of add on that a little bit. I mean, Bloomsburg is such a big part of my life. I mean, I went to school there and then coached, so I was there for 6 years, which doesn't compete with Eversalt's 9. But I love going back to Bloomsburg and eating at just any local place that we used to eat at with Coach Collins and just catching up. It's reminiscent of a time in my life where I was super naive, to think I'm just going to work really hard and I'm going to coach wherever and do this forever. That's what I think of. I just think of the challenge and all of the opportunity in front of me, to go recruit really hard, try to learn, but just the time where it was like, hey, this is so young, this is so new, and like I'm so grateful to Coach Collins to allow me this opportunity and to help guide me through it, you know, like, so just thinking of that time, and every time I'm there, that's what I think of. Sorry, and I met my wife and I got married in Bloomsburg, but I'm trying to talk low and, you know, so.
I'll definitely have to start off with the tornado wings, like Eversole said. That's a given. It's a huge one. I think more than anything, I just miss like the place, the school, and the environment that it allows. I think it's unlike any other school that I've coached at or been around. Just like the kind of environment it is, how much the students love it there, how much the guys love it there, all the athletes love it there. I think about that more than anything. I say all the time to people, like, I'm so lucky to have randomly never even known about it and then went and did my grad school there and coached there as well. Like, I was extremely lucky for that to be a part of my life just because of how great of a school it is. And I think that's kind of what I miss about it most is, like, recruiting wise for me, I think out of all the schools that I've coached at, like, that's a school that I would have loved to gone to. So I think that's why it was so easy to like want to sell that to a recruit. It's like, and you can recruit guys that are like you as well. It's like, why would you not want to go here? Like, the school is awesome. So I think that's what I miss about it more than anything, just the kind of school it is, the environment it creates, and the opportunities that are there.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. Epstein, I'd love to have your opinion on this one. What do you miss the most?
I think the culture of the team, which it may sound like a cop out, but you know, what Nick said about the limited resources and having to get creative in recruiting, you know, the recruiting spiel that Coach Collins puts forth. I think you get a lot of guys who are cut from the same cloth and are there for the right reasons, which to me is really fun. You know, I don't know who the best player on this call was. It certainly was not me. And I, you know, you play for the love of it, and you're grateful for the opportunities that you get. And I feel like a lot of the roster, you know, the whole roster most of the time is guys who are cut from the same cloth, have a chip on their shoulder, want to prove that they belong. I mean, the PSAC obviously speaks for itself. And I love that, man. Those dudes, when I was there, super competitive. And man, Casey Cooperman, probably the top 4 worst shaped pitchers I've ever been around. But man, like, you couldn't beat that kid, you know. And I love that. I love those guys. I tell stories about those guys all the time. You know, and certainly close-knit bunch, and just thankful for the time there with those guys. And I think that's certainly what I miss the most.
I guess we could take the cop out of the autonomy again. I mean, just the pure you get to make up not necessarily your own hours. I always try to show up as early as possible, stay as late as possible. But at the end of the day, if you needed to do something and get out of the office, you always had the opportunity to do so. To expand on what Brownie said, I went to Herkimer, like I said. It's a small college. I mean, I think we had 1,000 residential students, and then like everybody else came to campus and whatnot. But the family atmosphere that I felt at Herkimer was definitely there at Bloomsburg, and the student population was like 10 times what we had at Herkimer. So I mean, just the atmosphere around the campus, the atmosphere around the athletic department, the atmosphere around the team itself, you can't get anything better than that. I mean, it's very hard to beat. And then just to see the progression of the guys and see how much they grow up from the first team meeting at Coach Collins' house to, you know, when we sent them home for winter break, that progression just literally in this one semester is outstanding. And you truly don't get that type of culture, if you will, from many other institutions, for sure.
Great. So I think we covered a lot here. So what I want to do is I just kind of want to open the floor for just if anybody has to say or wants to say something just to wrap it up. Worst comes to worst, I'll just cut it out in post-production. But any like last calls, thoughts, takeaways? I think this was really it was actually a good opportunity to, of course, meet everyone and talk to everyone, but share some similar stories and sentiments about like the job.
No, this is a really good idea, and I think seeing a lot of the Zoom stuff today and other people asking me to be on calls and stuff, like it gets old. Like I have to get on some calls and I'm like, oh my God, like I got to listen to this again. Like this guy's talking about infield and someone wants me on the call, and how many ways can you feel the ground ball? Just feel it in throats first. So I think to be on this one, I was excited when I saw this text, and I knew it was going to be good stuff, and it was really something I was looking forward to. But I think someone kind of alluded to it a little bit. It's kind of like we all kind of know each other because we coached at Bloom, and I think that's the cool thing about people transitioning in and out of there so fast is there's a lot more guys. So I think it's almost like it's not in the sense of being a teammate where there was 50 or 60 guys that you play with and it's a fraternity when you graduate, but it's almost like a mini fraternity within the GAs and the guys that coach there, which is really cool. And I remember Coach Collins, I love this one. I remember last year I was at Diamond Nation. We were recruiting, and it was me, Rob, Epstein, Cress was there, and I think that was it. And then there was another year it happened, and the same thing happened. Coach Prakniak was like, oh, I got to get a picture of all the Bloom GAs. I got to get a picture of all the Bloom GAs and send it to Coach Collins. I was like, you're not getting a picture of us, Jad. Get the hell out of here. Like he was such a child about it, like he is. But it's a cool fraternity to be a part of for sure.
The year before it was with Dustin. Dustin was there.
I remember Dustin was there for one of them. I think that one was like me, you, Dustin. I think Josh was there too.
Yep.
Josh driving all the way up from Tennessee.
Well, another year or so, Cress will be joining the fraternity too. The tree is just getting bigger.
He's already trying to push me out.
Sorry, I'm gonna say if we're done from Coach Collins, I got a good story that you might have to edit out.
Go ahead, bring it back down to earth.
So, I think it was my first year coaching. It was end of the season. We're playing Westchester, and Westchester has it was like the start of conference second week, so kind of like mid-year, a little after mid-year. And Westchester had this sophomore left-handed hitter, and he had a really good freshman campaign, and their team was loaded that year. They lost a ton of seniors, okay? So this kid's hitting in the 3-hole for the first time in his life. His numbers are not good. Like, as a freshman, it was really good numbers. And this year, they're not good. Like, they're surprisingly low. Like, his batting average is down. And this is before we overanalyzed every stat, so I can't tell you anything else except that his batting average was low. Probably if we look back at that time, he probably had some really good numbers besides that. Coach, I remember sitting down, Coach Collins says, quite frankly, pretty naive statement, goes, well, maybe he's just not that good without all the protection in the lineup. And I'm like, I still think we shouldn't pitch to him. And I think our plan was to not pitch to him. However, he proceeded in that doubleheader at the Dan to put 3 balls behind the old Monty's building, which is, for you that don't know, over the parking lot into the grass. And I think he finished the year hitting like 400 because we essentially gave him his season back and his confidence. And if you haven't picked up on it yet, that young sophomore hitter is Joey Wendell, who's currently in the big leagues. So he proved us wrong that he didn't need the rest of the lineup to support him that year.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up. I mean, I've gotten a lot of perspective on just, where this spot has gone, being assistant coach with Coach Collins. And, I think the big takeaway, at least on my end, of just like how much of a fraternity it really is, whether or not we run into each other on recruiting and so on and so forth. But I really appreciate everyone coming on the call, taking some time out of their busy schedules to talk to us. So we'll wrap it up there. Part 2 sees the end of our GA Roundtable discussion. I want to thank again Pat Brown, Josh Epstein, Rob Hardy, Nick Eversole, Dustin Johnson for all taking some time out of their busy schedules to come talk to us. Next week, we will have a new guest, and that will be Steve Nagy of JMU Baseball. He is the Director of Operations who just graduated this past May, and he will talk a little bit about the things that he's been learning at his time at JMU and his subsequent internship with the Brewers last summer. So I'm really excited to get that video out, and till then, we'll talk to you soon.